We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. Obviously, a lot of this happened since our last episode. I'm gonna be honest. We're gonna get right into it. We had the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Okay. There's no two ways about it. It is a tragic event that has pretty much rocked the entirety of the United States, and you have most reasonable people in the country who, let's just start off with playing the video. Let's play cut 122. All right. Sorry, I was in the middle of trying to post this out. All right, I'd only met Charlie Kirk a few times over the years at CPAC, AmFest, donor events and stuff, while back and forth to D.C. And for all intents and purposes, whether I've disagreed with Charlie Kirk rhetorically multiple times over the years, and I have no problem, as I've made it a part of my brand to challenge people on both the right and the left when I think that what they're doing or what they're saying is counterproductive. But I agree with Charlie Kirk, I want to say probably about 95% of the time. And regardless of whether you agree with him, there is no reason to assassinate him. The left and their reaction has made this almost like Charlie Kirk was akin to Hitler. Oh, and by the way, people, I have Andy from System Stoge in the studio with me today. So I'm not flying solo, guys. They've made Charlie out to be akin to Hitler. And, well, you would assassinate Hitler if you had the chance. I'm like, there's a moral debate there, because you don't know at what point was the turning point for Hitler to become Hitler. Okay, so are you assassinating an infant in in a crib, or do you at what point are you the innocent Hitler or the evil Hitler? Right. So
it's 10 years of rhetoric that have brought us to this point.
Yeah.
Late in 2015, I actually was doing some research on this for a personal project of mine recently. Late in 2015 was the first time that Donald Trump was compared to Hitler, and he had to answer it in the mainstream media, answer the charge on Good Morning America, I believe, with George Stephanopoulos.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of exactly the polarization driven by the rhetoric you're describing, and it came home last Wednesday.
We're in this place, and like I said, I call out both sides of the aisle. Both sides of the aisle have been ratcheting up the rhetoric. consistently over the years. It's everybody on the left is this and everybody on the right is this, and it's fueled by these influencers on both sides of the aisle and the punditry who are constantly arguing with each other but don't live on the ground with rational, normal, everyday people who are able to have conversations and disagreements and go about our day perfectly fine, or even share a beer at a bar and agree to disagree. These people are hyper ideological, hyper agenda driven. They're not normal. That's why I constantly criticize the people within the DC Beltway. And I criticize the influencers, because the main thing that drives the rhetoric in the influencer class is clicks, likes, retweets, shares, and subscribership. None of that has to do with actually saving the republic. None of that has to do with actually fixing where we've gone wrong as a country. As a matter of fact, it all contributes to ratcheting up the rhetoric, because what gets clicks, likes, subscribership, retweets, shares, being ridiculous, saying the thing that nobody should say out loud. And I'm not saying that you don't have free speech. I'm saying you should have the wisdom to understand that there are some things you shouldn't say, because that's being an adult, right? Toddlers say whatever the hell they want, what for better or worse. That's why they had a whole TV show, Kids Say the Darndest Things. As adults, you have to know at least a basic level not to call your wife fat. You have to know at least a basic level that there are certain things that you probably shouldn't do if you want to have any sort of productive, respectful dialogue. And when it comes to politics, we should be focusing on what is productive. And we don't. Which brings us here. Now, I'm not saying everybody on the right is responsible for this and everybody on the left is responsible for this. I'm saying very specific people are responsible for this. So let's highlight, let's go to, I want to do cut 120 and 121 back to back. We got Bill Maher and J.K. Rowling trying to be the voice of reason.
I might drink a little more than usual today because, I don't know when this is airing, but this is a shit day because a guy who sat there, Charlie Kirk, got shot today. Yeah. And I can't stop thinking about it. And
neither can I.
And we shouldn't. And if you're on the other side of the political divide and you don't care because the wrong team guy got shot, fuck you. You're what's wrong with this country.
And you got J.K. Rowling. Now, here's the crazy part, right? J.K. Rowling, on every other issue, has been far left. Like, radical progressive, except for this and the trans issue, because she's what the trans people call a TERF. Yeah.
I think the term was invented for her.
Yes. Was it trans exclusionary radical feminist?
Yes.
And Bill Maher has been a free speech absolutist his entire career, and has recently, like Stephen A. Smith and many others on the left, has gotten to the point where they're saying, I want nothing to do with you people anymore. You hate America. You hate rational dialogue. Anybody who says anything you dislike, you want them not just canceled, you want them gone. We're seeing this across the country in the reaction to Charlie Kirk's assassination. People are celebrating, mocking it, mocking death. Do you understand how ratchet and disgusting and dark your soul has to be to mock somebody's death like that? How indoctrinated do you have to be to mock pain and suffering like that? And I've said this to people on the right. So, there's a lot of people. Let's throw up a cut 112 because I want people to see this, because I am of the mindset of anyone who continues to bring up George Floyd at this point is a fucking grifter. And the reason why I'm going to say this, because this has been brought up specifically, the difference between the two men as far as character, right? And there's an obvious difference, so I'm not going to pretend like there isn't. But George Floyd has been dead for years. Now, the common reason people are bringing him up is because the difference in the reaction to one man being killed versus the other. But I want to highlight something, and something that the reason why the rhetoric has gotten as bad as it is because neither side of the aisle is willing to recognize any level of nuance. During the day, 50,000 people plus march through LA. 50,000 people did not burn down LA. At 9 o'clock at night, the same type of people who celebrated Charlie Kirk's death, the same type of people who would have taken a shot at him if they had the balls to, those are the people who burnt down LA. Those are the people across the country who have no problem destroying college campuses, being anti-Semitic, jumping people in the streets. Those people. The vast majority of people on both sides of the aisle are normal, rational, critical thinking, whether you agree with them or not, whether you agree with their logic or not, are normal people willing to have a discussion about things and come to a, let's agree to disagree. I may think you're a bad person because you don't agree with me, but I don't think that you deserve to die because of it. And we've gotten to the point when we constantly do the whole left was willing to burn down the country over George Floyd. No, the whole left didn't. The vast majority of people, over 90%, over 95% of the left sat at home. The vast majority of people did not even go out and march. The vast majority of people who did go out and march didn't burn down the city. And the vast majority of people who were out during the burning down of the city were in the crowd, not actually throwing Molotov cocktails, flipping cop cars, and trying to take over courthouses. And this is the problem, is there's zero nuance because the headline is everything. And if you got the snappy, wild thing to say, who cares as long as you get the clicks, right?
And the viral clips add to that, too.
Yeah.
There's no nuance in an age where anything can go viral in seconds, and people jump to conclusions so quickly based upon a quick image that they see.
Yeah, there's no timestamps in these videos. There's no motives being expressed in these videos. There's no people doing breakdown. And even if you have a podcast where you're one of those people who does a play-by-play breakdown, guess what? People don't like nuance because it shatters their reality and it forces them to have to look in the mirror. And introspection is pain. Nobody wants to look in a mirror because then you have to shatter your preconceived notions, which is what this whole podcast is about. It's everything I do. I want to shatter your preconceived notions about how the world operates. Guess what? Both sides are responsible for this. The violence came from the left, but the rhetoric is ratcheted up on both sides of the aisle. Anybody on the left who's trying to say that there is hyper right-wing, far-right violence in this country that has led to this, it's bullshit. I see no evidence of it. I see a bunch of Fed-looking dudes in khaki pants and blue polo shirts walking around with shields, saying weird shit. I see we just had some neo-Nazi guys up here at the State House about a month ago. See some shit like that. Occasionally you'll have some people with some tiki torches. I'm still baffled by the fact that people on the right wave the Confederate flag, Republicans waving Democrat history. Weird shit, just goofy to me. But that is not comparable to assassinating somebody you disagree with politically. That's not comparable to shooting up a GOP baseball game. That's not comparable to taking a shot at a U.S. president. It is not comparable to trying to break into a U.S. senator's house to beat him and his wife. It's not comparable to trying to break into a congressman's house or trying to break into a Fox News host's house to do the same thing.
Or for that matter, murder the Minnesota legislators who, unless I'm mistaken, the evidence has suggested they were actually killed by crazed leftists, not by Trump supporters.
No, they were, and that's the problem. The left is even attacking their own for not being left enough. And there's a chart. I didn't bring it with me today, but I don't have the media to throw up there. But it shows media, rhetorically, and in academia, the left has skewed so far to the left. The right isn't actually winning. We're not actually growing. It's just that they've moved so far to the left that it's like what Reagan used to say. I didn't leave my party left me. So many people have been left out of it. And you got the J.K. Rowling and Bill Maher going, dude, you guys have taken a step too far. When you try to justify this, you try to downplay it, you try to act like it's not as big of a deal, or you go, I didn't agree with Charlie Kirk, and he didn't deserve to be assassinated, but let me explain to you a couple things that I think he probably should have been that maybe he was asking for it. No. It's speaking out of both sides of your mouth. How do we get here? I've been warning people of this for years. The algorithmic abyss. You get online, you get on the social media platforms, and literally everything you see is death, poverty, and destruction. Racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, bigotry of all kinds, multiplied by however much they need to multiply it by to keep you clicking so they can keep selling your data. And people who spend too much time online think that this is reality. That's why I keep telling people to get out and touch grass. But I realize it's not getting any better. We spend more hours, despite knowing how bad this is, numerous studies showing how bad this is for the human condition. We spend more hours online than ever. And it goes up every single year.
Yeah, there was a book that came out in 2012 by Jonathan Haidt called The Righteous Mind that described exactly the moral basis in the mind and in the emotions for differences between the right and the left. What was so interesting about that book, what is so interesting about it in retrospect, is it was written before he accounted for social media in his assessment of how this is all force multiplied.
Yep.
And for that reason, I wonder if that's why Haidt hasn't devoted basically the last 10 years of his life to studying the effects of social media on this hyperpolarization. But either way, there's no question, what you said is absolutely right, that social media has been maybe not the singular cause, but the singular determinant of how hyperpolarized it's become and how desensitized people are to how polarized it is, more importantly.
Now let's throw up the media from Matt Walsh, because I want people to see. I want people to understand. James Lindsay posted this. I pray you don't fall into this thinking. The sides are not left and right. They're civilization and chaos. They are, as Matt says, good versus evil. The dangerous arrogance that Matt exhibits in his video that James Lindsay is quoting is that he digs into the right is good, the left is evil. That's wrong, because reality is not so clean as black and white. Nick Fuentes is on the right. That guy is certainly not good. There's Groypers on the right. I don't see any evidence that they're good. None. I see them using and bastardizing statistics the same way I watch BLM do it. And I see them doing it to get the same type of goal that BLM wanted. To supplant the people that they view as others. Or that they don't like, they feel slighted by. And the vast majority of rational human beings don't think like that. Like, it's pretty much, we always say colorblind, right? And we always use that to say, I don't see color. No. I see color clearly. I'm not colorblind. I do see color clearly. I have a fucking mirror. I know what color I am. I'm sitting across from you. I know we're not the same color. However, what I do see is I see a guy of good character, and I judge you based on your character, and you judge me based on my character, and color has nothing to do with it. And I don't judge you walking down the street whether or not you got good character or bad character based on the color of your skin. As a matter of fact, there's so very little evidence and so very little, even violence has actually statistically decreased in the country since the 70s. We had a spike in the 90s, but it has decreased even since then. Even now, when we're talking about a crime spike, we're talking about a crime spike in relation to how crime has been decreasing over the past few decades. So I constantly am like, the evidence that black people are hunting down white people or white people are hunting down black people, I'm sorry, it's just not there. Are there disparities? Yes, there are. But what is the main driver of crime and victimhood? Proximity and opportunity. That's it. It's proximity and opportunity. If you're close to me and I have an opportunity to victimize you and I am going to gain something by it, that's the motive portion, the intent, then you're the victim. If you look like you're going to be a hard target, then I'm going to choose a separate victim. There's also the main reason why men are more likely to be victims of violent crime than women are is proximity and opportunity. Why? Because a woman's not going to walk down that dark alley. Me and you, we might be drunk enough or dumb enough or think our balls are big enough to do it. And then we get jumped by 7 Mexicans and a cockroach. And what happens? We're the victims of violent crime. Is it because I'm black and you're white? No. It's because we happen to be dumb enough to be out in a dangerous area in a dangerous time of day where we are likely to be victimized by people who want to do dangerous shit. It's really that simple. But, you know, with the Matt Walsh thing, let's do a quick break and we're going to come back. We'll be back in about 90 seconds, guys, because we got some more for you.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
The Spirit of a True Patriot, the inspiring story of retired Captain Douglas J. Ernest. Douglas Ernest dives into the thrilling and transformative journey of a man who defied the odds to forge his path as a soldier and a businessman. This book is more than an autobiography. It's a call to action. Experience the remarkable story of a man who never takes no for an answer. You can find The Spirit of a True Patriot, the inspiring story of retired Captain Douglas J. Ernest, on Amazon.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Yeah, I know. Wait, I don't know.
Yeah, you just look at that. It's so sad.
So let's look at some of the backlash, right? So we have a New Jersey surgeon. Let's throw up cut 117. We have a New Jersey surgeon who had to resign after cheering Charlie Kirk's murder. And his nurse, who called him out for it, was suspended and got reinstated after the fact. This is where we are. There's a video circulating online right now of Charlie Kirk, of a vigil for Charlie Kirk, and a kid gets up and acts out the assassination, thinking it's funny, and spits on the people throwing the vigil. And this is where we are. There's another famous video or another viral video of a pastor in a church lambasting Charlie Kirk, saying he deserved it. Yeah. Let's throw up the clip I sent you on X. Yeah. So there are people though who are out there trying to rally and say we need to stop this stuff. Snoop Dogg and a bunch of rappers got together, said that we need to come together as a country. Last I checked, I think even Eminem and Kid Rock said we need to come together as a country. I think it would go a long way right now for the entirety of the music industry. Do a massive concert. I mean something that makes the Golden Globes look bad. Like the way we did for, was it AIDS Across the World or something, AIDS for Africa?
Oh, possibly. I know there was the series of big benefits for the famine in Ethiopia in the 80s. But yeah,
we need
same
to
kind
do
of thing.
something like that.
Yeah.
Like a Woodstock. And it needs to be about let's come together, because we've had over the past decade major stars lionizing assassination attempts or visualizing assassination attempts on Trump. Snoop Dogg, one of the rappers who said we need to stop this, was one of them. I don't see how we turn back from this, unfortunately, because I'm seeing people on the right call for war, people on the left think that this is funny. And I'm not saying the entire right, and I'm not saying the entire left. I'm talking about a very small, loud, obnoxious population on both sides of the aisle who are constantly arguing with each other, who spend way too much time online and don't live in reality and are probably jerking off in their mom's basements and their tidy whities to Heavy Metal magazine and shit. That's an old reference. I don't know. I just aged myself a little bit.
I think you aged both of us.
But these aren't normal people. So I'm not going to pretend like they're normal people. I'm not going to say everybody on the left is responsible for this. And I'm not going to say everybody on the right is responsible. Specific people on the left and specific people on the right are responsible for this. I blame largely the punditry and influencer class because they have been exercising their ability, their platforms with very little responsibility, very little accountability, very little wisdom and ability to actually sit and go, what is the long-term effect of the shit I'm saying right here and now?
And I'll add to that, I completely agree, and I'll add to that just quickly, the intellectuals who have become part of the punditry class, especially
yes.
on MSNBC, they are the worst.
Oh, yes.
And in my opinion, John Meacham, I don't know if he's the worst, but he's certainly the most cynical. Mm-hmm. And he was at Joe Biden's right side for the entirety of his run for president. I'm not going to make this a revisiting of things that happened a long time ago, but he's representative of that phenomenon. But that whole class of people has ginned this up.
Oh, yes. And look, I'm not going to say that. I am very keen on being honest about the fact of how we got to where we are. Okay? I've watched this ratchet up on both sides out, and I've been sitting here going, look, I don't have a winning side to this because the America both of you guys are trying to push us towards, your rhetoric is going to leave 90% of the country out. And I don't want to be in an America that looks like my party left me or both parties left us because they went so far to the fringes, because you're not listening to normal people. You're listening to pundits and influencers. The intellectuals are the worst because they use big words and pseudo-intellectual studies and lying with statistics in order to get their little agendas. And depending on which side of the aisle you're on, you even have government infrastructure to back you. That's where it gets nefarious on the left, is 60, 70 years of government infrastructure skewing everything in one direction to where you have college kids stomping on flowers and candles at a vigil, assaulting people for praying, taking over college campuses, being anti-Semitic. That's why I continue to call out both sides out, because if you're sitting at a place of just pure honesty I see it here and I see it here. I see the rhetoric here. I see the rhetoric here. Do I think that there's an equal amount of people on the right as there are on the left doing it? No, I don't. Not even close. Do I think that those people are representative of the entire left? No, I don't. Do I think these people are representative of the entire right? No, I don't. Not even close. But they have the microphones. And the punditry give them larger microphones because of the ridiculous shit that they say. And social media allows them to say what they say with impunity. And unfortunately, like moths to a flame, we all flock to it. Because it's like watching a train wreck, you just can't look away. Let's throw up Charlie Kirk's post, cut 118. Because I think this is how people should be looking at this. Hate speech does not exist legally in America. There's ugly speech, there's gross speech, there's evil speech, and all of it is protected by the First Amendment. That's a free speech absolutist. I don't agree with criminalizing speech. I also don't agree that we should be going around killing each other for it. You could say horrific things about me and to me, and I wouldn't assault you for it. Because I'm a grown-ass man and I have self-control. And I say this towards anybody on either side of the aisle. We shouldn't be at the point where we're assassinating our political opponents because we don't like the things they say. Can we throw up that other cut that you pulled up? I saw it waiting there. I spaced out. Here we go. Rob McCoy. Charlie Kirk was my friend, and I was his pastor. I want to simply say regarding Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk was a friend to Candace and never publicly spoke poorly of her, though he disagreed with her. He never operated nor entertained gossip nor innuendo concerning Candace. My only comment I offer regarding Candace is I only wish at this tragic time she would be a friend to Charlie Kirk the way he was to her. He would have never treated Candace or her family in such a way as she has. Candace is one of the pinnacle people on the right who is constantly ratcheting shit up. Whether it's the Jewspiracies, she called black people chimpanzees slinging shit in a zoo. There's valid reasons why this woman is toxic. And even the Trump administration figured it out and stayed the hell away from her. This is why it's not the type of stuff that the vast majority of people who support pundits or influencers see, unless you're online all the time. But it still gets said, and the other side of the aisle sees it because their people show it to them. The same way we see the shit they say that they don't see their own people say because our people show it to us. And we need to understand that there's a game being played to keep us at each other's throats. My buddy Maj Touré always says, we're all just airing our grievances against the government, and they've convinced us to discount each other's grievances in order to escape our righteous condemnation. That's where we are right now. And the worst part is, there are people who do it on purpose, and then there's people who are ignorant enough to be useful idiots. Let's throw up the committee to elect New Hampshire Republicans. Jason Osborne had a comment, cut 119. He had a good comment that I thought a good quote. Republicans will not shrink from this fight, Osborne concluded. At a time when America needs unity against violence, Democrats have chosen division and deflection. Republicans chose, was it truth and courage? This is after the Democrats, the New Hampshire Democrats, decided to take two comments that he made in a long post out of context. Said that he was calling for violence. He wanted war. Everything that he was saying is that you can't be silent in the face of this level of violence, degradation, corruption, and chaos, that you have to attack it head on, not by being equally as violent, not by being equally as chaotic or equally as corrupt, but by attacking it head on with truth, by attacking it head on with good morals, by attacking it head on with integrity and honesty. And what did they do? Prove his point by being dishonest. And that's where we are right now. We got a couple clips we're going to show you going into it. We do got a prayer vigil coming up tomorrow. I'd like you to go to it if you feel so inclined. There was a prayer vigil after the day after Charlie Kirk's assassination. God bless everybody. We're going to have a good guest coming on up next. We'll see you after the break.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving Southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best-looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
I'm Chris Jakomick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakomick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. I'm sorry, the first couple segments have been very, very depressing, but we're going to get into a better subject. We're going to start breaking down where America's gone wrong with vaccines with our next guest, Shaz Khan, author of The Ultimate Vaccine Timeline, a fact-packed history of vaccines and their makers. She is a London-born Swiss-Indian creative designer, information junkie, and critical thinker, somewhat obsessed with vaccines. She graduated from Central St. Martin's College of Art and Design with a BA honors in product design and has complemented her education with certifications and courses in nutrition, marketing, communications, anatomy, physiology, immunology, and vaccinology. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Julian.
I'm glad we're able to get into this because I have, over the years, I'm a Marine. I've been shot up with about every damn vaccine this country has to offer. As a matter of fact, it was common practice that they would lose my shot record and I would have to get my shots all over again. So I don't know. My blood is probably worth about a gold mine at this point, or maybe I might have a couple latent diseases that are going to make my arm fall off. Where have we gone wrong with this? Why is everyone looking at RFK as if he's the devil incarnate, as if he's evil incarnate for daring to question Big Pharma and all the chemicals they shoot us up with that have disclaimers that take 30 minutes to read off?
I think RFK Jr. is symbolic of a movement that is basically very much felt in the public at the moment, but we've never had a secretary of HHS who has a critical view, who wants to ask the hard questions. And obviously this is what I mean, when you see who's asking him most of the questions, they tend to be Democrats. Obviously, I'm based in Switzerland. I'm not very much involved in American politics, but it seems to be an attack on his person as opposed to actually addressing the scientific issue at hand, which is the true lack of safety studying of the vaccine schedule as it stands today.
I see very little consistency with the vaccine schedule. I've watched it change multiple times just over the course of, my oldest is 14, my youngest is 7. Just over that course, I've watched the vaccine schedule change multiple times, and I see no reason for it. I've never once been given a legitimate reason for why I need to shoot up my kids with 40 some odd shots.
Well, as the CDC says, they believe that you need vaccines to grow. So in their eyes, it's for the best health of your children to prevent infectious diseases. So there's the individual health level, and there's obviously the public health level. They're trying to build up herd immunity to prevent epidemics from occurring. But when you look back in history, you see that epidemics were occurring in highly vaccinated populations. Vaccine immunity wanes, whilst natural immunity from the actual disease is usually lifelong. It's very concerning that there's no consistency already. In Europe, we don't have consistency with the vaccine schedule. Here in Switzerland, we have no vaccines which are mandated or obligatory, but our neighbors in France have 11 which are obligatory. The UK, it's not obligatory. Italy, it's obligatory. Then they have slightly different schedules. The US, I believe Iran and also China and some other countries, perhaps also Slovenia, do hepatitis B from birth, but in the rest of the world, we don't really start until 2 months. And it's not always recommended by default, unfortunately nowadays, because it's harder to have the individual choice of getting, separate vaccines. Now you can only get like the 5-in-1 or the 6-in-1. Consumers don't really have much choice anymore to which vaccine they actually might want to get. Typically if you go to the hospital and you want to get a tetanus shot because you've got an injury, which that in itself is you can question the validity of that. But you don't even have the choice of just getting a tetanus shot on its own anymore. It's a minimum 3-in-1, in most cases 6-in-1, because that depends as well on the contracts that the hospitals will have with distribution centers to see what vaccines they actually have in their cabinet. And, we know that combination vaccines are more expensive than single ones. They can mix in patented vaccine preventable diseases with non-patentable diseases. That was the case with hepatitis B. It's not the case anymore because the 17 years has lapsed. But it's very concerning that there's no consistency, that we're not questioning, and that when they add new vaccines to the schedule, they don't look at the scientific evidence to show that it's safe and that they can actually administer all these vaccines together and not create chronic health problems down the line. Because even if you do prevent measles, if you're preventing measles but you're getting an autoimmune disease or a neurological complication, I think most parents would choose a 1 to 2 week infectious disease over a chronic condition which they're going to have to manage for the rest of their lives.
I would completely agree. One of the things I found so interesting about the rate at which our vaccines have increased over the years, also at the same time where Big Pharma is the largest funder of medical schools and academia, and like the entire process from start to finish, Big Pharma are the main funders, and they are also the main funders of the media on both sides of the aisle. So I'm not even saying Democrats or Republicans in this. I'm saying both sides, leadership in both parties they get the checks from the same people. The media gets the checks from the same people. Academia gets the checks from the same people. The research institutes get the checks from the same people. The doctors themselves, their education is being funded by the same people. At what point do we not sit here and go, I don't know, I've been told my entire life to follow the money. The money is very clearly telling me that somebody's pulling the strings to make sure that we are hopelessly sick. We have a country full of hypochondriacs.
Yeah, industry is basically a sponsor. I mean, they sponsor education, they sponsor the media, they even sponsor the regulatory agencies. For those who don't know, FDA, Swissmedic, which is the FDA in Switzerland, even the MRHA in the UK, they're all majorly financed by the pharmaceutical industry. And when approving drugs, the regulatory agencies only look at the clinical trials that are supplied by the vaccine industry, in the case of vaccines, obviously. They don't do their independent studies. There's no independent investigation before they're brought to market. And as you said, I mean, between 1983 and 2005, there's been a doubling of the vaccines available in the US and a tripling of the vaccines that are mandated on children. And it's not only, I mean, doctors in general learn very little about vaccines in their medical education. It's under the umbrella of immunology, but they depend on further education once they leave the medical curriculum. And those further education seminars and conferences and courses, etc., are also all sponsored by the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, I had the example of myself where I got into a pediatrician formation training specifically about vaccines and the schedule, etc. And not only was there blatant conflicts of interest with the scientific committee who were presenting, but we had the pharmaceutical industry who was sponsoring the event. They all had tables at the back of the room and were basically jumping on anybody they thought was a new pediatrician who they hadn't yet visited. So it's very insidious and very incestuous. And one of the big, I mean, I would say a solution is basically cutting out all those entrails that the pharmaceutical industry has within all these establishments and academia, of course.
I completely agree with you. The problem is I'm not going to lie. I'm very pessimistic as to whether it actually happened because I see too many palms that get greased along the way. I mean, the WHO, the World Health Organization, is also sponsored by Big Pharma. I mean, I've watched us go. Afghanistan, we burnt the poppy fields, with the opium fields, to those who would not cooperate with us, and Big Pharma was on the ground working with those who would.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's not surprising. It's like, why were they so... Big market, big money, and of course an opiate like that, you can control people as well, because when they're druggies and when they're dependent on substances, they're not paying attention to what else is going on within the corruption. So it makes us into zombies, basically.
I always found it interesting, especially when it comes to, because the vaccine industry and the way Big Pharma operates, the way everything regarding this issue operates, I see solutions being pushed. I'm going to get the air quotes on camera. Solutions being pushed that aren't actually solutions and come with lifelong problems. Like, especially when it comes to hormone therapy, things like that, where you get somebody hooked on hormone therapy while they're prepubescent, while they're going through puberty. You're talking lifelong treatment, regardless of whether they want to detransition or not. They have to be on hormone therapy for the rest of their lives because you radically changed their production, their maturation. And I'm seeing this with vaccines. You're changing the embryonic and developmental structure of a human body during its most critical point to where you're affecting it long-term going on.
Absolutely. I mean, the amount of vaccines are given to pregnant women now is absolutely madness. We're talking about a pregnant woman getting a DTP shot just for the pertussis component, by the way. They're not necessarily recommended to get diphtheria and tetanus. It's just you can only get the 3-in-1 shot. I wonder why. Then you're getting now the COVID shot. Okay, now they've been taking it off as a blanket recommendation, but it's still available for a pregnant woman who's scared about getting COVID during pregnancy. You've got the RSV, which is supposed to be respiratory syncytial virus, which you're supposed to be getting also protect your newborn against bronchiolitis. There's the flu vaccine every year as well that you're supposed to get. It's crazy that we're doing this without actually understanding what the effects are on the fetus. We have really still very little understanding of all the developmental phases, from the nervous system to the endocrine system, digestive system. We know that our liver and our kidneys aren't functioning completely when we're born, yet we're injecting these, an accumulation of toxins on a regular basis up until the age of 12 and then 2 years old, without understanding the repercussions in the long term. And this is the other serious issue that we have with vaccines, which I'm very happy that Secretary Kennedy is bringing up, is the lack of long-term studies. And the WHO actually even admit this behind closed doors. I mean, they do realize that they're lacking in long-term safety science and even midterm. But, behind closed doors, they admit to that. But in public, they'll say, vaccines work, vaccines save lives. And anybody who's questioning them is a danger to public health, which is just absolutely ridiculous, because most people are just looking to preserve their health, because the rest of life is not very enjoyable if you have health problems. And anybody who's had health problems will know that, especially chronic versus acute, which is what an infection like measles could be.
I think one of the biggest misnomers in the health industry, because it is an industry like anything else, and it seeks to be self-perpetuating and to prioritize profit. I think the biggest problem in the health industry is they know there's no money in preventative health. There is no money in telling people to diet, exercise, go out and get sunlight, eat some zinc, basic vitamins and stuff. Eating a bag of foam Cheetos is not going to help you. Mountain Dew is bad for you. That a lot of the stuff that we do is counterproductive towards our long-term health. Hell, me and my parents we're all patients of the VA. I refuse to take just about anything the VA wants to prescribe me. I got a good doctor now who doesn't try to dose me up with shit. But my mom, on the other hand, gets one pill after another. The vast majority of her pills counteract with her other pills. Massive side effects on every single one of them. The side effects are like this long. And I'm sitting here going, we're doing this with vaccines. We're doing this with medications. You could have an entire drawer full of medications to solve this issue, this issue, this issue. But by the way, it also causes this issue, and this issue, which we are perfectly happy to prescribe you more medications for.
Of course, it's good business to have sick people, because it's really bad business to have healthy people who don't need to go to the doctor and get pills prescribed. It's a serious problem. And here in Switzerland, we have the second most expensive healthcare system, just right behind you in the US. We only have private healthcare, private insurance, but it's obligatory. It's a huge money-making industry, and people often still tell me like, oh, but vaccines don't make much money, there's not much profit. That's absolute BS. Mm-hmm. For anybody who doesn't realize that vaccines are now billion-dollar businesses. I mean, Comirnaty, so the Pfizer's COVID vaccine, has made over $85 billion since it's come out in 2020. Obviously to the personal wealth as well of Albert Bourla, the CEO of Pfizer, who is raked in tens of millions as a result of that and of Paxlovid and other sales. But those were the primary ones in 2021, 2022. And Prevnar, which has been on the market for 25 years, has made about the same amount of money in 25 years as opposed to just 5. Then you have Gardasil. You have the other big one actually has just come out recently, Beyfortus, which is not technically a vaccine, but is being recommended as well to newborns here in Europe and in the US by Sanofi. It's monoclonal antibodies, quite expensive. That's being recommended as well and has already made over $1 billion in its first year of marketing, the second year, sorry. Vaccines can actually represent up to 30% of the annual sales for a pharmaceutical company. And as I said, Pfizer, the COVID vaccine, obviously you could say it was an exceptional circumstance because we had this pandemic. They can make loads and loads of money. On top of it, they get free advertising, because who's doing the advertising for these vaccines? It's the government and it's the medical societies. Mm-hmm. And they don't have to spend much money on advertising, even though I know in the US they do, especially with TV advertising. I've seen a couple of vaccines advertised on television. That's unheard of here in Switzerland. But obviously with COVID, we had the taxpayer paying for the communications campaign to get vaccinated, and it was all based on manipulation, like get vaccinated for other people. That was the whole basis of the communications campaign.
I think we need to get, back to a society where we don't allow big pharma to directly market to people saying, hey, you're sick, come get what we got. Because we have created a society full of hypochondriacs who are convinced that every single little thing that they're going through requires that they go get a $50 pill or a $500 vaccine. In the insurance, we're not going to get into the insurance issue. But I want to know, because you have a very diverse background, what was it that made you want to write this book and made you want to get into vaccines specifically? Yeah, there's always that sparking moment for everybody. Yeah. What was it?
Most people's spark is usually some kind of personal experience or tragedy. In my case, it was the death of my father 10 years ago. He died 2 months after a flu vaccine. He was in hospital in the UK under the NHS system. He was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, but all his symptoms in hospital were neurological. And that just confused me because I understood, if you have stage 4 lung cancer, you have, respiratory issues, you have problems breathing. But his problems weren't respiratory at all. And he was being treated for steroids for brain inflammation. So I was like, what's going on? So it was only after he died that I found out actually that he had received a flu shot. And I was just like, hang on a minute, he should have never gotten a flu shot simply because he would have been too ill already at that point. So the first thing I did was went and looked at a package insert. Now, I wasn't, at this point, I was a bit skeptical of the pharmaceutical industry in general, but I still had this thing, vaccines are safe and effective. Vaccines are safe and effective because that's been drilled into me as much as most people who've gone through an Anglo-Saxon education system. So I started reading those package inserts and was pretty shocked to discover that the manufacturers even admit that neurological injury following the flu vaccine is well acknowledged. So that got me looking at other vaccines and looking at other package inserts. And then I started reading about it, and I just was very curious and kind of pissed off that I'd been lied to, because that's how it felt. Now, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not a scientist, and I'm not even a parent. So vaccines weren't really on my radar. But I remember the last time I received a vaccine, I pulled up my sleeve upon my doctor's recommendation, didn't ask a single question, didn't read anything, and just thought it was normal that I couldn't use my arm all day. And later found out that vaccine that I was given was taken off the market 1 year later because it was one of the last ones that was circulating that still had thimerosal and mercury in it. So it came from basically feeling deceived and being pissed off, and then having enough free time to actually go and dig down, first of all in books, then in libraries and in national archives, to try and find out the history of vaccine safety myself. And needless to say, the more I was picking up and looking at, the more questions I had and the more disgusted I got and the more pissed off I got. So in about 2018, so 3 years into my research, in the UK, I came across a couple of documents that really got my jaw dropping, and I just said, hang on, I have to put this in a format that I can share, that is in a book. I mean, I'm a graphic designer, product designer by training, and I'd always been interested in health and science. So as opposed to just having this on a website, I decided I wanted to really put it in a book and present it with like old catalogs, the old advertising, and in a timeline. There's over 1,300 facts I've included on vaccination, and I've intermitted them with other things going on in the world, biological weapons, some other legislation, and it helps connect the dots to understand better how this kind of system evolved, because the pharmaceutical industry, like before the 1980s, they weren't really making that much money from vaccines. There were way less vaccines on the market. They were like literally cost pennies sometimes. And it was really after the Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986 that gave liability to the vaccine companies that allowed them to suddenly expand the schedule and expand the amount of products they brought to market without any kind of liability on safety. And this is also when a lot more combination vaccines came along. And we know now, like as I said, the number of vaccines available have doubled and the mandates have tripled. And there are more and more vaccines being pushed on kids. Babies. This hepatitis B shot at birth makes no sense whatsoever, and it isn't scientifically based whatsoever either. But it's crazy. This has been in place since 1991 in the US, and it's still going on to this day. Hopefully, that will change soon.
Well, one thing I can definitely say is, one, the science is not settled. Science is never settled. You always question the science, and you always continue to look. A vaccine may be safe today, but that doesn't mean it's safe tomorrow, in 5 years from now, 15 years from now, 25 years from now. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be safe during a gestational period for a baby. So we need to start looking at things a lot differently. I hope RFK makes a big difference. Where can people go find your book and support your work?
Thank you. So my book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and I'm also an ardent supporter of any local bookstores. If you still have one in your neighborhood, you can order it in. They'll get it from their distributor. But as I said, yeah, Barnes & Nobles, Amazon. And I have a website that accompanies the book called theultimatevaccinetimeline.com, where I'm adding documents to support the content in my book. There's also some sample chapters if anybody's interested to go and take a look at what it looks like, how it's presented. And there's also Substack, which I publish some articles which are inspired as well from the contents of the book. It's indieresearcher.substack.com. So INDIE researcher.substack.com.
All right, thank you. I want to thank you for coming on the show. I hope this has been a very informative episode for everybody watching. Please go buy the book, support her work, and I want you to watch this episode over and over and over again until it clicks, and then share it with everybody else so they can do the same, and hopefully we can get RFK enough support that we might be able to actually change the tides of where we're going in this country when it comes to vaccine schedules, big pharma, and the healthcare industry as a whole. Thank you for coming on, and please come on soon again.
I will do. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, that gives you the end of the episode here for today for Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. I hope it wasn't too heavy of a podcast. No, that's I'm lying. I hope it was heavy. I hope you take it to heart. I hope it hurts your feelings. I hope you start to analyze, look in the mirror, figure out whether you've been contributing to the problem or whether you've been a solution to the problem. Okay? The rhetoric needs to stop. We need to dial it down. We need to start looking at solutions over everything else. God bless. Have a good day. Come back next week so I can wreck your presupposed positions. All right? Later.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.